an ex-pupil from a Brent school. She was in Brent schools in the 70s and 80s. She's dying from mesothelioma due to asbestos exposure in school. Now, if she was a pupil, she's lucky in that she's claiming from Brent Council. She's going to court, I understand. I'm very hopeful it's a success for her. It means she'll be able to get compensation for her 2 children. If a pupil who's been at the academy now since 2003 and onwards, they would have to sue. There's no public liability insurance that includes asbestos. There's no governor liability insurance that includes asbestos insurance. Teachers have the employer liability insurance, but a pupil in school will have no insurance that will enable them to get compensation for getting mesothelioma and dying in school. Every year, 200 pupils die from mesothelioma contracted in schools. Every year, nearly 20 teachers die from mesothelioma in schools. It's time, and you were talking about needing to challenge, make sure that when they set up the academies, they make sure they comply with all the legal things. How is it we've got an authority which, because of its scale, it can't, the authority itself cannot take out insurance for pupils getting mesothelioma, but it's rich enough that it itself insures. It will pay the compensation from its own budget, which is very expensive. But an academy will not have that. So the governors of the academy or the free schools will have to find the money themselves because they are financially and legally responsible. Now, I don't mind about the people who run these academies because I think they are very divisive in society, but I do mind about the pupils because Martin was talking at the beginning, we should put the child at the centre of everything. Why is it that pupils have to suffer in the future a death, a terrible death? And there's no one there to help them because no one thought to sort out the insurance for that. And I'd just like to say also, as being involved in health and safety in Brent, a lot of things that the authorities do are invisible, like the health and safety committees that work out safety policies to support the schools. I know many people who would have died if it hadn't been for the work done by those invisible committees. Unfortunately, the governments come in and they set out their policies and they assume that these local authorities are doing everything wrong, but they're throwing out the baby with the bathwater and they're throwing out all the really good practice, all the good educational support, the very good safety support that we desperately need. And if it goes, there's going to be far more people dying from mesothelioma because, let me tell you now, 3/4 of all schools in the country contain asbestos. And the government is already cutting all the regulations that support safety people in the schools. So basically things can only get worse because there'll be no more HNSE inspections in schools. There'll be no one cracking the whip to say you must do this, you must do that, you must comply with this. And people who run schools, the heads of academies and the heads of schools, they do not have a very good understanding of safety at all. And I do hope that when we're looking to education in the future, that we take the best practice that's been going on and look at how can you make sure that children are covered by insurance, make sure that we do get the best practice and safety coming out. Because without all these invisible people behind us and all the good work they do, education can only go down. And as you say, we need to have a proper look at the legislation and to make sure we are protecting our pupils and our teachers.
Thanks very much. Perhaps if I could start with you then on precisely that point. You know, how will people stop dropping through a net when the hand of ensuring that these actions are put in place to make sure that all pupils are protected? What will happen with this fragmentation of the education system as we see it?
Well, just to start with, I'm interested you say it's an invisible health and safety committee. I know the committee does very good work and works closely with teachers panel, joint consultative group, and that you followed this the issue about asbestos, etc. And it's absolutely right. I mean, there is a lack of accountability as far as academies are concerned. I mean, what I would say, you know, is that in Brent we have schools who are academies who are used to this good practice, and I'm sure will continue. But that doesn't answer the question of how we secure that now in the future. So it's a very good point raised. Shall I just come back on some of the other things? Just interested in what concrete measures can we put in place now to improve children's education, and that is very much about that wider agenda of education and you know, all the outcomes for children, which we used to talk about the 5 outcomes. It's about staying safe, being healthy, achieving, making a contribution, all those things. And I think that going forward with the Brent School Partnership that is evolving now, we have a good opportunity to bring in all the assets. If you think of schools a bit more as hubs, they know the community, they work closely, democratically with their governors. There are a lot of assets out there, you know, there's sport and playing fields we hear a lot about, and this government is trying to get rid of them, but schools have a lot of assets and they do know their community, and in Brent we've got a lot, we're pushing forward very limited resources. We've got children's centres which give children a good start in life, and that can go up to age 8 actually, not just stopping at 5. And we've got a brand new youth centre, My Place, a £5 million new youth centre in Roundwood, which has really got the most fabulous facilities, and hoping that for those 11 upwards children who really want to get start thinking about getting onto the employment ladder, you know, how can they develop those skills that will get them eventually into work or to be able to be independent. All those facilities, you know, ICT, seen some hairdressing, performance, art, the whole range of opportunities there. It's on a slim budget, we've got to make it work. So it is about the wider opportunities for our children in Brent, who are, you know, 1/3 of them are in poverty. So we have to work with resilient families in Brent and get the most out of what we've got, and I think all of us need to be committed to that.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, a couple of things on the organising the future, or the concrete. I think we have to organise the resistance, as it were. There's a lot of people in Brent who feel the same way, clearly people here. We don't actually have a group that reflects that. We used to have something called a campaign campaign for the advancement of state education, which
It still exists.
It's still
Very
going.
upset.
in Brent.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, a Brent branch, I think, is defunct. But something similar for public sector, state education, child-centred, etc., inclusive, all the things that we've been talking about, which can involve parents, teachers and governors, I think would be a very good thing. It's something that we might want to look at arising out of this meeting. Something I've talked to Mary about, and Sarah, one of the assistant directors, is also bringing together again the Brent Federation of School Governors, which again is defunct. Enables us to speak as governors to each other across the schools, rather than rely on just information within one school, particularly on something like academies, so that you can have a debate and get both sides of the story and so on. So I think we're sending out a questionnaire this autumn about that. The problem with the LA looking at what the free schools and academies are doing is that they have no right to. They've got a funny responsibility. They're supposed to be responsible for all the children and families across the borough and their well-being, but they don't have intervention rights as such in academies to go in and, you know, sort of look at the systems of pastoral care or whatever. They can't do any of those things. And stories are coming from our academies in Brentleigh about children actually feeling that they're under pressure and being forced to do things, and discipline is being heavy and so on. Things that parents have chosen them for, but then later start actually complaining about. I hear about it because I live nearby. And On the autistic children, I think that children on the autistic spectrum is a better way of putting it. The Green Party is very much in favour of small schools. Small is beautiful, and small schools are a very good place for children on the autistic spectrum. It gets difficult when they get older or when they're in very large primary schools. So I think one of those issues is that if we do have a diversity of provision across Brent, that we still maintain a number of one-form entry primary schools rather than expand them all. There are one or two still left. I think one Brent school and one Church of England one. That's all I'll say now.
Okay, because we are running pretty short of time, we'd like to finish just after 9, if that's possible. So I'd like our speakers to sum up in 3 minutes or less, if
reverse
possible.
order.
In reverse
I think
order.
I think the 9 o'clock's important for those people who plan to get down to the pub. Sorry.
Yeah.
Academies and achievements, setting the record straight. Terry Wrigley and A. Callum Luca. That's analyse all of the results across all of the academies, compared them to the other schools, and the government's lying. Okay, that's it. That's a big lie. So what a surprise. I mean, they frequently have done that, I'm afraid, and so that's the truth on that. And we'll see, obviously, what happens in the future regarding free schools and all the rest of it. But it's published by Changing Schools. So
If you put your email on here, I'll email the link to people.
right, Shane had a key point. I use the I use the NHS as a thing. If the government says on the NHS, right, you've got to go private, otherwise you're getting no money. This is what they do. What do? Oh, okay, right, we have to go private, but we'll try and minimise the thing, we'll try and do this, and try and do that. And they say, right, it's you know, trust, whatever you, now it's all profit making. You're not going to get any money unless it's profit making. It's one step followed by another. So that there is no easy solution to what do you do in the immediate prospect. All there is are ways of resistance, of which you suggested a brilliant one, and it's when you get your mind right, there are a million different ways of resisting and what have you, and our only sole task in dealing with these so-and-sos is to maximise the resistance. When they came back from the war, Second World War, they said, sorry Churchill, you led us in great victory, but we're not having it, get out. We're going to have a national health service, we're going to have a proper education system, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. And that's what occurred, okay, because they knew they didn't have a chance of getting away with it, the people wouldn't have bloody stood for it for 1 second. That's what we have to develop with everybody. I think it's been a great meeting, by the way, and I'm very pleased that so many people have come and had the debate.
Thank you. Martin?
I'll probably be even quicker. I've got a quote here from Michael Rosen, the children's poet, who's been in our schools an awful lot. He's done something on his blog about the National Exam and Test cult, and he actually analyses the whole examination system as a cult with its priests and seers and all sorts of people. Though this cult pretends that it can discern difference between people and make judgments on their worth, this has little relation to real people's real worth in the real world, where all kinds of other capabilities are needed which the cult can't and doesn't test, e.g. ability to contribute to and learn from others in the process of performing a task, being flexible when confronted by the unexpected, knowing what to do and how to do it if required to research, investigate or inquire, particularly if the inquiry is going to involve more than one person, being able to motivate oneself or in a group of people without an outside authority demanding that you do so. And I know that I don't believe that the old system was good, but I do actually believe that the ILEA had some very excellent aspects of it. And one of the things that happened an awful lot in the ILEA was teachers getting together and innovating in the curriculum and sharing good practice and so on. And we actually need more of that. We might lose our teacher centre if the schools take over school improvement and things like that. There may be no place for us all as teachers or governors to meet together. That's really important, all that sharing, and you know, we share the resistance, but we also share the shared joy and creativity of teaching children, and that experience is wonderful. And we can't all be isolated and away from each other and just have it within one little unit. We'll lose out.
That wasn't short.
It was good though.
Councillor Arnold.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Just a little bit on the resistance. It's obviously in the council, we have to be legal in what we do. We can use the equality legislation, and we have done. And so, for instance, we made a legal challenge when the coalition government top-sliced our general fund, 9 million, I think, regardless of how many academies there were at the time. We won that. And we've also signed up to the judicial review about to get investigation into the GCSE results, which was a complete scandal. And we can obviously challenge admissions as well, although there's less opportunity now. But moving forward then, I think, you know, probably the best way is to work with other London councils, because there's more strength in numbers. And I hope you'll be able to read the report that they've recently put out. But the sorts of things are to establish educational improvement partnerships across London, and we're doing very well in Brent, but let's tie up with what some of the other London boroughs are doing. And it's not going back to Ilya, I don't think I could ever be quoted to say that. But there is a lot of good practice. Remember the London Challenge, which gave our schools a big boost. And also, in terms of making the education system more accessible to parents and local community, is having a commitment to all parents that wherever they live in London, there's a visible mechanism for influence in the local school system. In terms of academies and free schools, making schools accountable, well, this is generally making schools accountable for the onward destination of their pupils. I think it's really important that we don't just see GCSE and A-level results, but where did the children go as well, you know, universities or jobs or whatever. But giving local authorities the powers to order a financial audit or investigation for academies, as they can currently do with maintained schools. And then finally, making sure all state-funded schools, including academies, have at least one governor appointed by the local authority on behalf of the local community. And not to forget, in terms of supporting vulnerable children, continuing to deliver a broad range of children's services in line with their statutory duties, and having fair access panels with the power to issue a direction to academies to admit hard-to-place pupils, as we do with maintained schools. So those would be the ideas going forward, which we can do collaboratively, is happening with other London councils. Some of it needs legislation to do it.
Thank you. Would you want to comment?
I think what Hank said. I think this is an important part of what Brent and any other local authority community needs to do. I think you need to work towards a really good understanding of what's going on in education, so that people are making informed choices and then take their decision about what sort of action, whether it's legal, it's political, it's a personal response, or it's the walkout from Ofsted. But I think that's a crucial service. I think there's also a need to avoid too much division by chiselling away locally at those people who are making tough decisions with the best of intentions after very careful consideration. Got to remember who isn't the enemy, I think as was said earlier. And finally, I think to put forward a positive vision, even if it has a sort of a cheap and easy acronym, such as building the right education now together, which would spell out Brent if you're lucky.
You really are speedy, well done. The one thing I really want to say to you about scrutiny quickly is find out how much money the academies are getting. Yeah. Because what they say is it's about governance and teaching, and actually I think a lot of the academies whose accounts are not audited and you can't get access to them are just getting more money. Yeah. And I think it's a very important piece of information to get into the public. Right, I want to make a bigger point, which is this lot are ruthless. That's the truth. They are ruthless. They came in and within 2 years legislated to kind of try and destroy everything that, let's say we're all good people, which we are, have been trying to build up over many years. And one of the most interesting things I heard in my year of going about was Peter Wilby, a journalist. He stood up and he said in 1957, happens to be the year of my birth, so I remembered it, this organisation called the Institute of Economic Affairs started out wanting to transform society, to marketise everything. And they were considered crackpots in 1957. And actually, they wormed their way into the heart of the establishment, and Thatcherism was represented that, Blairism, I'm afraid that's one, was also represented that, and this lot have come in and they are just you know, having said they have a hoodie, they are, you know, they are the hoodlums. And the trouble is, our side lacks confidence. The trouble with Labour is it lacks confidence in the great ideas that shape the welfare state, and it lacks confidence in a way of modernising them, because they do have to be modernised, but bringing those principles into the 21st century. Now, I think the two real problems with our education system, generally, that need to be tackled is, one, the child is not at the centre often, and actually, there's something very wrong with the whole way we look at education. It's all too test-driven, and once it's test-driven, then the selective system, which is in parallel, the private system, always wins, and you know, the private system is what we should all be looking at and emulating. Totally wrong, totally wrong. We should have the child at the centre. Finland, we're not like Finland, but our society could learn from Finland, which is that they have high-quality neighbourhood schools. I think resources are at the heart of it, and Labour has lost the confidence entirely on the resources argument because of the austerity agenda. But you have a high-quality neighbourhood school. In Finland, they don't have an idea of children with special needs. Every child is looked at individually. They train their teachers rigorously, and then they trust the teachers, and they have genuine autonomy. That's the system. I mean, you know, maybe we're talking about the 22nd century. That's the system I think we have to have, rather than constantly going on this league table, and I fall into it, you know, the results of the Maintain Sex Diversity Academy. I started that way when I was talking. Actually, I think that's completely the wrong way to look at it. We need different qualifications, different assessment. Secondly, we need an integrated system, and then I will shut up. I went to hear the head of the Finnish system, head of Finnish education, stand up, House of Commons, best meeting I've ever been at. Michael Wilshire was there, head of Ofsted. And there were hundreds of people there, and he, very slightly dull guy, and he stood up and he said, when we started to redesign our education system in the early 1970s, we looked at the gap between the private and selective schools and the rest, and we thought the only way to get a fair system is to abolish the private and selective schools. And that's what we did. And they now have the best system in the world. At some point, Michael Wilshire walked out of the room. And he only walked out of the room because there is no answer to the Finnish education system, because they are excellent and they are fair. And finally, the OECD says you only get an excellent system if you have a fair system. And that is what is so wrong with our system. And finally, an answer to you. Okay, boycott Ofsted. I would like to see teachers actually, on a day of strike or action, instead of leaving the schools, which allows the right to criticise you, occupy